Good morning, children. I am going to tie for you today a fly called an H&L variant, which is also known as a house and lot, or even an Ike's fly, if you're old enough to know who that is. If not, look it up. And this is a big white-winged, white-tailed attractor fly that is super visible, floats very well, and catches fish, man. Pretty buggy silhouette. So I'm going to twist one up. Apparently there's not a great video of this out on the internet, so we're about to fix that. So I'll walk you through how to tie one of these suckers, and we'll see if we can't make things go a little bit easier for everybody. So with that, I'm going to pull that one out of the vise and put a new hook in here. So what I've got here is a Tiemco 100 SPVL size 16. You have my favorite dry fly hook. And I'm going to start with some Veevus black 14-aught. And I'm going to start this thread just really up behind the eye. And I'm going to dress about the front half of the hook shank. And then I'm going to bring the thread back up to about the 75% point there. And that's where we're going to tie the wings in. So the wings on this are calf body hair. You can use calf tail if you like self-flagellation and are into that sort of thing. Calf tail hair is just, in my opinion anyway, for wings, miserable to work with, so I don't use it. I use calf body instead. It stacks much more nicely. It's just much easier to work with. I think makes a much cleaner looking wing. If anybody's got a great tip on stacking calf body hair, I would love to hear it, especially for small flies. It's one of the things that has always impressed me about umpqua flies is their wolves and so forth. They're tied with calf tail hair, and they're beautifully stacked. And I would love to know how they do it, but nobody's given me an answer to that yet. So what I'm going to do, I like to tie mine. I like to fish this fly because it's so visible. I typically fish this fly in the evening, so I tie it with fairly heavy wings. So I'm going to take a nice stout clump of cleanly stacked calf body hair. I'm going to measure it a shank length long. I'm going to tie it in at that 75% point with 3 or 4 stack turns, and then I'm going to start to build a band going backwards. And I'll go 4 or 5 turns there. And then I'm going to lift these butt ends up. I'm going to come in from the back and cut those off at an angle. And I'm going to wrap down over those tapered stubs. I'll bring the thread all the way back to the bend. Before I come back and do the wings, I'm going to do the tail. And the tail is also calf body hair, but a smaller clump. And one of the things with calf body is you always want to make sure that you get it cleaned out really well. Get all those short hairs out of it. So I'm going to clean all the short hairs out. We'll go through this one more time. Put those tips down in my stacker and give it a few wraps. One thing with calf body hair is it typically is a little wavy. And you need to use a medium-sized stacker on it to get that hair, give that hair a little room. I've got just major static on this piece of hair right now. I'm going to leave this in just so you know what happens. See if we can get around some of this static. Yeah. Yikes. At any rate, using a little bit larger size stacker gives that hair room to move down out of the stacker tube and stack into a nice clean bunch. Alright, we've got that a little more like I was hoping. So a nice clean bunch. And realistically, I'm going to say it's about a half of what we use for the wing. I'm going to measure this a shank length long and tie it in at the bend here. Bring that down just a bit. And I'm going to wrap forward over those butt ends to just about where the butt ends of the wing ended. And I'm going to pull all these butt ends up, try to get them all in one shot, and I'll lay my scissors in flat again and trim those off. And what that ought to do is bevel the butt ends of the tail into the butt ends of the wing. Got one loose hair in there. There we go. As I wrap forward, I should end up with a nice smooth transition with no lumps or bumps, like so. And that's what we've got. So now I'm going to stand the wings up. So I'm going to lift the wing, close my fingers below the hook, and lift the wing up and back. Sometimes it helps to wet your fingers a little bit. And I'm going to build a thread dam in front of this wing to prop this hair upright. And I like to jam these thread wraps right up close, right up tight to the base of the wing to stand that hair up. And you can see it spreads out. I'm going to hold that wing now in my thread hand and take a couple turns right up against its back edge, just to kind of group that hair back together. Now I can come in, I'm going to move my thread back behind the wing again. Got a little weird thing going on, there we go. And I'm going to divide this clump in half. And my fingers do this better than my eyeballs do. I want to get about the same amount of hair in each wing. And to start with, I'm going to go from back to front, near to far, 3 or 4 turns diagonal between the wings. So I'll show you those wraps there. Then I'm going to grab my near wing. I'm going to go from front to back, near to far. Missed one hair there. We're just going to get rid of him so that I have divided those wings. Now I'm going to pick up my bobbin, and I'm going to do this with my material hand. I'm going to wrap around the base. So this is just like a parachute post, but you can see how these wraps just gather the wing together. And come around the hook. And then I transfer the bobbin to my thread hand, and I'm going to do the same thing on the near wing. Just short little posts at the bottom. So typical hair wing maneuvers. Trying not to be redundant to flies that I've done before. The Royal Wolf and the Humpy are both the exact same maneuvers, but just post to the base of those wings. And then I'm going to come back here to the base of the tail. And one thing I always do on my H&Ls is I'm going to take just a couple of post wraps around the base of that tail. And that elevates that just a bit, kind of stands it up a little proud. Nice and pretty. And now for the body, what we're going to use is from the Peacock eye, just below the Peacock eye. There's some really nice thick curls in here. So we're going to just pick one of these off of here, clip them off. And you can buy pre-stripped peacock quills. The abdomen of this fly is just going to be a stripped peacock quill. I'll show you how to do it just manually. I'm going to take my thumbnail and just kind of pinch those flues off of the peacock quill. Turn it over and get both sides. Your fingers actually grab a hold of it fairly well. If you wet your fingers a bit, it'll strip that off and you end up with a nice stripped quill. And you don't need much. Even on a 14 or 16, it doesn't take much to build that body. So once I've got a section of stripped quill, I'm going to tie it in by its tip end, right here at the base of the tail. And I'm going to wrap forward over it up to about, well, I'll say the 60% point. Now anytime I wrap a quill or a buyout or anything like that, I like to put a little shot of super glue down on the thread base first. And a little goes a long way. So just a little light thin coat of Zap-A-Gap there. Then I'll pick up my quill in my Hackle pliers and begin wrapping it from the bend forward, just slightly overlapping turns. Trying to keep it nice and flat as I go. And when I run out of quill, I'll tie them off. You'll very rarely have more quill than you need. But that abdomen's not going to be terribly long. But you can see that makes a nice segmented body there. Now for the thorax, I'm going to take 2 of these nice bushy peacock curls. I'm going to clip the ends so that they're square, clip the tips, and I'm going to tie them in by their tip end and overlap just over the front edge of that abdomen with my thread wraps. I'm going to build just a little tuft of peacock curl there, just 2 or 3 turns, and then tie that off. I can clip that excess peacock out. Now one thing you want to be sure of is that you've got equal distance from the front edge of that Peacock Herl to the wings, and then from the wings to the back edge of your index point. We want that room in there for our hackle. And in the case of this fly, we're going to just use 2 brown hackles, or furnace hackles work great. I want to make sure that these are sized appropriately for this hook. They are. About 1.5 hook gaps is what I'm shooting for here. And I'm going to strip about half a shank length worth of bare stem here. I'll show you as soon as I get all these fibers off of here. So I've just got bare stem. I'm going to tie this in at the front edge of the Peacock Herl and wrap over it right up to the base of the wing. But what I want to be conscious of, and you can just barely see it there if I turn this all the way around, these stems here I want to be just short of the hook eye. They're a little long, so I'm going to nip them out of there. I'll sweep those wings back and come forward and wrap over those stems. I usually come right up to the hook eye, and I'll come right back to the base of the wings, take a turn behind the wings, and then back to the hook eye again. Now I'm going to wrap my 2 hackle feathers at the same time. And one trick when you're wrapping your hackle feathers is I'm going to hold those 2 feathers as close to the hook as I can as I wrap them. I usually get 3 turns behind the wings. Next turn right in front of the wings. You can see I swept the wings back. 2 turns in front of the wing. Then I'll tie those hackle feathers off and trim those out. Now just a couple of smooth thread turns to cover the butt ends of that hackle stem, and we're ready to whip finish. Nice smooth thread head. Nick that thread out of there. Straighten your wings out again. You usually end up manhandling them a little bit when you are wrapping that hackle. But that is our finished H&L variant. Somebody had mentioned to me that they looked for a tutorial for this on the internet, and there just wasn't a good one, so hopefully we just fixed that. One last thing I do on all my hair wing flies is I'm going to turn the fly upside down in the vise like so. I'll just take a thin shot of gloss coat head cement and put that in right behind the eye, and I let that kind of bleed back in the hackle. And that'll bleed down into the base of the hackle and also the base of the wings and lock those wing posts. You can actually see that very well right there. You can see how that bled up the base of the wing posts. But big, bright white wings on that fly. I fished this fly on the Roaring Fork in the evening in the lightning round in big sizes for green drakes during the summer, and this fly shows up. Even in the dark it shows up, which is something to say. There's a reason why these old flies are still popular. This fly does show up better than most of the stuff you've probably been fishing, and small stream wise this fly's a killer as well. But cool little fly. That's the H&L variant. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm Charlie Craven. If you need anything, you know charliesflybox.com has got it. So check it out. Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching. You guys take care.